Chun lived in the lower rings of the orbital dome, where recycled air always smelled faintly of rust and algae. His life was simple, fixing broken machines, trading spare parts for food, and eating alone in his one-room flat. He didn't expect much from the world anymore. People came and went, but he stayed where things were quiet. That changed the day he saw her dot at the edge of the market, near a broken vending unit. An alien woman crouched with a little girl in her lap. Her skin glowed faint silver, with faint violet lines across her temples, a Zarkonian. Beside her, the girl was thin and pale, eyes too big for her face. The mother tried to bargain with the vendor, showing 3 cracked coins, but the man only waved her away. Not enough. Find another stall. Chun paused. He had seen this kind of scene too many times. Hungry refugees, ignored by the crowd. Most people looked away, but Chun couldn't. He had been a soldier once, and in war he had learned one rule: no one survives alone. He stepped forward, laying 2 credit chips on the counter. 2 bowls, he said firmly. The vendor shrugged and filled 2 containers with rice broth. The alien mother looked up, startled. Why? Chun didn't answer. He simply handed her the food and walked away. But when he glanced back, he saw the little girl eating quickly, broth dripping down her chin, and the mother whispering something like a prayer. The next day, Chun returned to the market. And there they were again, same spot, same hunger. Without speaking, he bought food and set it down before them. The mother tried to give him the cracked coins, but he shook his head. Keep it. She bowed her head. My name is Seo Yan. This is Sarah. Chun gave a short nod. Chun. Then he left Dot. It became a pattern. Every day, Chun went to the market. Every day, he found Seo Yan and her daughter Sarah. He brought food, sometimes broth, sometimes kelp bread, sometimes dried fruit. And every day, Seo Yan tried to thank him with words that never felt enough. Sarah, shy at first, slowly began to smile when she saw him. One afternoon, rain pounded against the dome panels, and the market was nearly empty. Chun found Seo Yan huddled beneath a leaking pipe, Sarah wrapped in a torn shawl. He bought extra food and crouched beside them. You can't stay out here, he said quietly. Seo Aeon shook her head. We have no place. The shelters turn us away. Chun frowned. Because you're Zarkonian? Her lips tightened. Because we have no sponsor. No credits. No one wants to risk trouble with the guild. Sarah tugged on Chun's sleeve then, her small voice breaking through the silence. Thank you, Mr. Chun. For a moment, his heart caught. He hadn't heard gratitude spoken so simply in years. He ruffled her hair gently, then stood. That night, Chun couldn't sleep. He thought of the girl's thin arms, the way Seo Yan tried to stay proud even when her stomach growled. He thought of his own empty flat, the spare chair, the bed big enough for more than one. The next morning, he carried not just food, but also a folded blanket. When he laid it across Seo Yan's shoulders, she froze. We can't repay you, she whispered. Chun looked at her steadily. I didn't ask for repayment. Sarah giggled as she bit into a piece of bread, crumbs sticking to her cheeks. Seo Yan's eyes softened, but she quickly looked away. From that day, Chun's visits changed. He stayed longer. Sometimes he taught Sarah small games with screws and bolts. Sometimes he spoke with Seo Yan about Zarkonian traditions, how they once lived under starlit skies, how their songs carried across crystal valleys. Chun listened more than he spoke, but in the listening, a fragile bond grew. The people of the market noticed. Some muttered, others sneered, but Chun didn't care. He had faced worse than whispers. One evening, as the neon lights of the dome flickered on, Chun set down the food as usual. Sarah clapped her hands in delight. Seo Yan, weary but grateful, looked at him with something different in her eyes. Not just thanks. Something like hope. And in that moment, Sean realized this wasn't just kindness anymore. It was the beginning of something larger, something that might change all of their lives. Days turned into weeks, and Sean's quiet pattern continued. Every evening, he brought food to the same corner of the market. Sometimes it was kelp soup, sometimes rice cakes, sometimes dried fruit he had saved from his own meals. Seo Yan always bowed her head in gratitude, and Sarah's shy smile grew brighter each time. Chun never stayed long, but he always made sure they ate before leaving. The market, however, was not blind. People noticed. A few muttered about the strange human who wasted his credits on aliens. Some sneered when Sarah giggled, or when Seo Yan whispered thanks. And some watched with sharper eyes, the kind that looked for weakness. One evening, as neon signs buzzed overhead, trouble found them. Chon had just placed a packet of broth in Seo Yan's hands when three tall shapes blocked the light. Zircons. Their scaled bodies glistened under the lamps, their yellow eyes fixed on Chun with mocking interest. The leader, a broad-shouldered youth with a jagged scar across his jaw, tilted his head. "Well, well," he drawled. "The human caretaker. Feeding strays again?" Sarah pressed closer to her mother. Seo Yan pulled her daughter into her arms, her jaw tight. Chun didn't move. "Step aside," he said simply. The Zircon chuckled. "Why so cold?" "We're just curious. Why spend your food on them when your own kind starves too? Unless they're more than charity to you?" His words dripped with mockery. Chun's voice stayed calm, steady. "Move." The gang circled closer. Scarjaw reached for Sarah's shawl, tugging it with his clawed fingers. The girl yelped. Seo Yan slapped his hand away, fury flashing in her silver eyes. That was enough. Chun moved like a soldier, quick, precise. He caught the Zircon's wrist, twisting until bone cracked. Scarjaw howled, stumbling back. The others lunged, but Chun stepped between them and the mother and child, stance firm, fists raised. His gaze was flat, cold, the look of a man who had fought real battles and survived. "You don't want this," Chun said evenly. For a moment, silence hung heavy. The Zircons hesitated. They had expected an easy target, a lonely human too soft to fight. But in Chun's stance, they saw something different. Discipline, training, danger. With a hiss, Scarjaw pulled his gang back. "This isn't over," he spat. "You'll regret crossing us." Then they vanished into the crowd, muttering curses. When they were gone, Seo Yan let out a trembling breath. Sarah clutched her sleeve, eyes wide. You didn't have to fight for us," Seo Yan whispered. Chun wiped his knuckles calmly. "I don't walk past people in need." "Not anymore." They returned to their corner in silence, though Sarah never let go of his sleeve until the food was gone. That night, Chun lay awake in his small flat. He had faced danger before, but this felt different. It wasn't just his own life at risk, it was theirs too. And yet, when he closed his eyes, all he saw was Sarah's frightened face and the Seo Yan's steady, tired eyes. He knew he couldn't step back now. The next day, he brought not only food, but also a blanket and a small toy he had carved from scrap metal. Sarah's eyes lit up when he handed her the toy, a little star-shaped charm. Seo Yan looked at him in silence, then finally whispered, "Why do you keep helping us? What do you want from us?" Chun met her gaze. "Nothing. Just eat. Just live." Her lips trembled, but she said no more. Over the next days, Chun stayed longer each time. He taught Sarah small games with bolts and screws, and she laughed freely now. Seo Yan sat nearby, watching carefully, though sometimes her stern expression softened into a smile. but the shadow of the Zircon gang lingered. Chun noticed them watching from afar, whispering among themselves. He tightened his guard, walking the market with sharper eyes, always ready. One evening, Seo Yun spoke in a low voice. "They will not forget. You put yourself in danger for us." Chun shrugged. "So let them come. I won't let anyone touch you." Her silver eyes searched his face. "You hardly know us." Chun's answer was simple. "I know enough." And though she said nothing, Seo Yin's hands trembled as she passed in the empty food container. It was the first time she let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, this human's kindness was not a passing chance, but something stronger, something that could last. For 3 days after the fight, the market felt heavier. Chun noticed the way people whispered when he passed, the way stalls grew quiet when Seo Yun and Sarah walked beside him. Even when no Zircons appeared, the threat hung in the air like smoke. On the 4th evening, Chun found them waiting not at the corner, but outside his flat. Seo Yin's face was pale, Sarah's shawl torn at the edges. Min Jun, named Chun, had only just learned was sick, coughing into his mother's arms. "They followed us," Seo Yan whispered, her voice trembling. "We ran. We can't go back to the market." Chun looked down the corridor. No one lingered nearby, but he didn't doubt her words. He unlocked his door and stepped aside. "Inside," he said. For a moment, Seo Yan hesitated. Pride battled with fear in her eyes. Then she carried Min Jun over the threshold, Sarah clutching her sleeve tightly. Chun's flat was small, cluttered with tools and spare parts. The air smelled faintly of metal and broth. Yet compared to the cold corridors, it was warmth. Seo Yan lowered her son onto the cot, smoothing his hair back, while Sarah stood stiffly by the wall, eyes wary but curious. Chun set a pot of water to boil and reached for his supply of dried kelp and rice. "He needs warm food. And rest." Seo Yan bowed her head, voice breaking. "You've already done so much. We can't ask this too." Chun glanced at her. "You didn't ask. I offered." The meal was simple, but Sarah ate quickly, Min Jun swallowing small sips of broth between coughs. Seo Yan ate last, quietly, as if afraid to take too much. Chun noticed and filled her bowl again, without a word. When they finished, Sarah curled up beside her brother, and Seo Yan sat with her back to the wall, arms wrapped around her knees. She spoke softly. "We never wanted to burden anyone. But every day you came. Why?" Chun leaned against his chair, staring at the flickering light overhead. "Because no one else did. And because I remember what it's like to be hungry and alone." Her silver eyes studied him, as if weighing the truth. Then she whispered, "You've given us more than food. You've given us dignity." That night, Chun stayed awake in the chair, rifle across his lap. He had thought his flat was a place for silence, but now the quiet was filled with the sound of breathing, small, steady, fragile. He found he didn't mind. The next morning, Sarah woke to the smell of porridge. She blinked at Chun stirring the pot, his movements precise. "Do you always cook?" she asked. "Only enough to keep myself alive," Chun replied. "But I can do better if I have someone to eat it." Sarah smiled for the first time without fear. "Then we'll eat it." Seo Yan joined them at the table, her hands trembling slightly as she lifted the spoon. When Chun set a small tin cup of tea in front of her, she whispered, "Thank you." Later, Chun stepped outside to check the corridor. Sure enough, 2 Zircon figures lingered far down, pretending to loiter, but clearly watching. He returned inside, jaw tight. "They'll come again," Seo Yan said quietly. She had seen the look in his eyes. "Yes," Chun admitted. "And this time they won't be content with threats." Sarah clenched her fists. "Then we'll fight too." Chun crouched in front of her, meeting her eyes. No, you protect your brother and your mother. Let me handle the rest. Seo Yan placed a hand on her daughter's shoulder. He's right. We can't fight them like he can. That evening, as they shared another meal, Seo Yan spoke again. You could send us away. It would be safer for you. Chun looked at her steadily. Safer, maybe, but not right. This is my door. As long as it's open, you have a place here? For a long time she stared at him, the words sinking deep. Then, softly, she said, You asked us to come in. And we did. That makes this your choice, not our burden. Chun gave a small nod. That night, when Minjun finally slept without coughing, Seo Yan sat quietly near the heater. Chun sat across from her, polishing the rifle. For the first time, their eyes met and held not strangers, not rescuer and rescued, but something closer. Something fragile and dangerous and real. And though neither spoke it aloud, they both knew this was no longer about a single meal or a single night. The door had opened to something far greater. The knock came heavy, like hammers against steel. Minjun woke coughing. Sarah grabbed for the wrench she now kept by her side, and Seo Yan froze, her hand trembling as it reached for her children. Chun stood slowly, rifle already in his grip. Stay behind me, he said. The door shook again. A voice shouted through the metal. Human! Time to pay for keeping strays. Chun opened it himself. 6 Zircons filled the corridor, their scaled skin glistening under flickering lights. Scarjaw stood at the front, stun rod sparking in his hand, grin wide with cruelty. You should have minded your own business, he hissed. Chun stepped outside, closing the door behind him. I am minding it. This is my home. You won't take them. The gang laughed, their echoes bouncing off the corridor walls. 1 man against 6? You'll break like a pipe under pressure. Chun's eyes narrowed. His stance shifted, calm, balanced. A veteran's stance. Scarjaw lunged first. Chun moved fast, his rifle butt slamming into the Zircon's jaw with a crack. Another swung his rod. Chun ducked, swept his leg, and sent him sprawling. The corridor filled with the sound of metal on metal, growls, and sharp cries. Inside, Seo Yan held Minjun close, listening with her heart pounding. Sarah pressed her ear to the wall, whispering, He's fighting them all. Outside, Chun fought like a man who had been trained for war. He didn't waste motion. 1 strike knocked a rod away. Another shove sent a scaled body into the wall. Pain burned in his arm where electricity grazed him, but he kept moving, breath steady, eyes sharp. 2 rushed him at once. Chun slammed one against the wall, then used his shoulder to drive the other back. His rifle fired a stun burst, and a Zircon dropped twitching to the floor. Scarjaw snarled, charging again, claws raised. Chun met him head-on. They grappled, the stun rod sparking against Chun's jacket, searing his shoulder. Chun gritted his teeth, twisted, and wrenched the weapon free. With 1 final swing, he smashed the rod against the ground, sparks scattering. Scarjaw stumbled back, chest heaving. Chun aimed the rifle at him, finger steady on the trigger. Enough, Chun said, voice like stone. For a long moment, silence stretched. The gang shifted uneasily. They saw in Chun's eyes not fear, but the calm of someone who had already survived worse battles. Scarjaw spat to the side. This isn't over, he growled. But his voice shook. He signaled his gang, and together they dragged their fallen away into the shadows. The corridor went quiet again. Chun lowered his rifle, breath rough, sweat dripping down his brow. He turned and opened the door. Seo Yan rushed forward, her eyes wide with fear and something more. You could have been killed. Chun set the rifle down carefully. Better me than you. Sarah stared at him, wrench still clutched in her hand. You fought them all, she whispered. You didn't let them touch us. Chun nodded once. That's what family does. The word hung in the air, heavier than any weapon. Seo Yan froze, lips parting. Family. She hadn't heard it directed at her in so long. Slowly, she lowered herself to the floor, tears glinting in her silver eyes. You gave us food every day, she whispered. And now you've given us safety. You've given us more than anyone else ever did. Chun sat heavily in his chair, his shoulder throbbing from the rod's strike. He looked at her, at Sarah, at little Min Jun curled in her arms. You asked for food, he said quietly. But I can give more. If you'll take it. Seo Yan's breath caught. What do you mean? Chun's eyes were steady. Stay here, with me. Not just for tonight. For as long as you want. This is your home now, if you'll have it. The silence stretched, broken only by the hum of the heater and Min Jun's soft breathing. Sarah stared at him, her suspicion melting into something warmer. Seo Yan pressed her lips together. Trembling at last, she whispered, Yes, we'll stay. Chun leaned back, exhaustion tugging at him. For the first time in years, his flat wasn't just walls and tools. It was alive. That night, Seo Yan laid her children on the cot, and when she looked at Chun again, her eyes no longer held just gratitude. They held trust, and in that moment, the promise of forever was spoken without words. The dome's corridor was quiet again. After the Zircon's defeat, no one knocked on Chun's door for many nights. Whispers followed him in the market, but none dared confront him. He carried himself differently, now not as a solitary man, but as someone who had something, and someone worth protecting. Inside the flat, life changed. Where silence once reigned, now there was the sound of laughter, soft voices, and the scrape of bowls on the table. Chun repaired an old heater to make the nights warmer. Sarah learned how to polish tools and mark spare parts, proud when Chun let her carry the slate to tally his work. Min Jun spent hours shadowing Chun, asking endless questions about every gadget in the room. And Seo Yan, though quiet, began to smile. Not the polite smiles of a stranger, but the real ones, the kind that came when she saw her children safe, fed, and warmed out one evening. Chun returned from the market with a small clay pot. Inside, a green sprout pushed through damp soil. He set it on the table. Sarah tilted her head. What's this? A plant, Chun said simply. Every home needs something alive. Min Jun clapped his hands. We can water it together. Seo Yan touched the leaf gently, her voice soft. It's beautiful. We'll take care of it. From that day, the plant became their ritual. Each morning, Sarah checked the soil. Min Jun poured the water, and Seo Yan whispered words in her Zirconian tone. Chun never said much, but he always watched, a faint smile at the corner of his mouth. One night, when the children were asleep, Seo Yan sat across from Chun by the faint glow of the heater. She looked at him for a long time, and finally spoke. When we first met, I thought you would give us only food. I thought your kindness was a passing moment, nothing more. Chun listened quietly, but you gave us food again and again. And then you opened your door. You fought for us when no one else would. And now, her silver eyes glistened. Now you've given us a home. Do you understand what that means to us? Chun's voice was steady. I know what it means to me. Seo Yan lowered her gaze, her lips trembling. We asked only for survival. You gave us family. For a while, they sat in silence, the hum of the dome filling the space. Chun reached for his cup of tea, and she mirrored the motion, their hands brushing lightly as they set their cups down. Neither spoke of it, but the warmth lingered. The following days were simple, but not lonely. Sarah drew little pictures on scraps of paper and taped them above the cot. Min-Jun carved shapes into metal scraps, proud to show Chun his inventions. Seo Yeon sewed a new curtain for the window from worn cloth, softening the room with her touch. Slowly, the flat no longer looked like a mechanic's cave. It looked like a home. One morning, Chun found Sarah standing by the door, staring at the corridor. "You're not going back to the market?" he asked. She shook her head. "We don't have to wait there anymore. We belong here now." The word struck him harder than any blow he'd ever taken. Belong. He had lived years thinking he belonged, nowhere neither to the soldiers he left behind, nor the neighbors who only nodded politely. But now, in Sarah's simple words, he felt the truth. They had chosen him, just as he had chosen them. That night, Seo Yeon whispered to him as she tucked Min-Jun under the blanket. "You told us your door would stay open. Do you mean that? Even forever?" Chun met her gaze. "Forever," he said simply, and in her eyes he saw relief, trust, and something more, something he hadn't dared hope for. The dome outside hummed with neon, and the corridors were still rough, still dangerous. But inside the little flat, warmth glowed. A mother, her 2 children, and the human who had once only wanted silence. Now, together, they had found something greater than safety. They had found family, and so it was true. Every day he had fed them, until the day he gave them what they needed most, a home forever.